This episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast is brought to you in partnership with ministryleague.com. We would love for more people to discover this show, so please rate and review us on iTunes or your podcast provider. Feel free to share on your social media and subscribe at benandtravis.com for the free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living.
Welcome in to the Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis, the Ask Lonnie Jones Anything edition. I think this is going to be episode number 3 of this special version of our podcast. And obviously, we're always super excited to get to hang out with the man, the myth, the legend, the icon, the showstopper, the main event, Lonnie Jones. Lonnie, and I'll let Ben give us your... I'm sorry?
You make me want to imitate Dusty Rhodes now.
There you go. Hey, that'll work too. Maybe
the man with the palate too sweet to
there
be
you
found.
go. Now the question is how many people out there know who Dusty Rhodes is? Because if you don't, you need to. I mean, the son of a plumber and all that good stuff.
Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I want to make sure I don't forget to say this. This podcast is when you take the Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis and mix it with the Keeping Up with Jones podcast, which I'm just going to tell you, Lonnie, is amazing. As soon as I get through listening to ours to make sure there is no mistake that I have to scurry along and fix in post-production, I flip it over and I listen to you on the way to work every Tuesday morning. And obviously we want to encourage all of our listeners to do just that. Probably the easiest way that I can describe to get there. Obviously, you can look up Keeping Up with Jones in any of your podcast providers, but you can go to benandtravis.com/friends. And about middle of the page, you can click that link and it'll take you straight to that awesome podcast. Lonnie, thank you for being with us. How you doing?
Oh, man, my pleasure. I love you guys, you and Ben and Will, and like to hang out with you.
All right. Well, Ben, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you know about Lonnie? Anybody out there that might not know,
Yeah. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't know, but it would take all day to explain all the things about Lonnie Jones and tell all the great stories that I have about Lonnie Jones. He is one of my best friends in the world, besides the 2 other guys that are on this podcast. And we've done a lot of stuff together. He was my supervisor in counseling. So if you ever find anything that I'm saying absolutely off the wall and crazy, it probably came from Lonnie. That's not entirely true, but I did learn very much a lot of the things that I do from Lonnie Jones, and very appreciative of all the years that he spent trying to correct me and get me to the right place. He's worked with the SWAT team, the real SWAT team in Huntsville, Alabama for 20 some odd years, 28 years. And he is also is a speaker all over the place, has a podcast that we've already mentioned, and just does a world of good for a lot of people. He's a licensed professional counselor in Huntsville, Alabama. And so there is a wealth of knowledge, as we have learned from our other Ask Lonnie Jones Anything episodes. So excited to have you with us. Excited to have Will with us as usual. And Travis, always good to be with you.
Will, you doing okay tonight?
And I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back. Missed the last 2 podcasts. Ended up selling our house in like 8 hours. So that's a big change. So going to be homeless for the next couple of weeks, couch surfing, but things are going really, really well.
Well, be sure to let me know how Ben's couch feels.
Ben can't fit anybody else in his house. So,
well, one here in the office.
Yeah.
Casa de Jones, I'm just saying.
Well, I've stayed at Casa de Jones a few times.
Ben, your name is at the top of the page, brother. So we're going to let you jump in with the first question for this episode of the Ask Lonnie Jones Anything podcast.
All right, we're probably going to go all over the page here tonight, but one of the questions that I had that I was thinking about, and we'll come around to some other people's, but I'll start it off, and that is, you have spoken in a lot of places, all over the world almost, but I know all over the United States. I'm curious, and maybe some of the people in the world are curious, where is the most interesting place that you have ever delivered a lesson? And I know it's not around a bonfire.
Interesting. Wow. We did a Devo on an elevated site in Honduras beneath this big, huge statue of Jesus. And the pilots landing at the second most extreme airport in the world have to queue off. You find Jesus and then you try to land that plane. It's what they tell them. And then I did some marriage lessons on a cruise ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. We got invited to a worship service, and the guy facilitating it was absent and just kind of gave me the reins. So I got to do a lesson on a cruise ship in the middle of the Pacific, which was pretty interesting too.
Definitely. That's awesome. So to piggyback off that, is it appropriate to ask, or would you get in trouble if I ask, what was the absolute worst setting that you were ever in besides a bonfire?
You can't top the bonfire. I'm just saying. We got this great idea. Let's put all the kids in the dark and let's start this fire so smoke can blow in everybody's faces, and the guys and the girls can snuggle where nobody can see them and be distracted by bugs and lightning and stars, and then let you in your little Smurf voice try to hold their attention. Yeah, that's terrible. That's a bad idea every time.
It's kind of like the first youth minister who thought of, let's have a lock-in. Like,
he needs to be taken out and beat with a copperhead filled with marbles. Is what he needs to be.
Or the first head football coach who said, yeah, homecoming. That sounds like a great idea. Let's do that. Yeah. All right. So
I did speak at a retreat, and I will not mention the state, but it was in a big mess hall, and they had the speaker's podium next to the air conditioner compressor, so that the whole time you're speaking, this thing's it's just miserable. You can hear that thing during the whole time, and it was not well thought out. It was
everyone was awake, but maybe not paying attention.
yeah.
All right, we'll flip it over. And this comes from our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Ben and Travis. Raul Ferris, who we all love, that we've met at Dallas, Texas. I guess, well, maybe not Will. Have you met Raul, Will?
I've met him through the group.
You've seen him on the group. Awesome guy. Just a challenges me in my faith all the time. He had this question regarding meekness, not weakness. Since Jesus says, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth, do you have any advice on steps to achieving meekness? Our culture is counter gentle, and I need help in this area.
I'm probably the last guy to ask that. That is one of my personal struggles in being a gentle person. I remember as a boy, we had this dog that my grandfather gave us. And in the middle of a rainstorm, I went out to feed the dog. The creeks were out, so we didn't get to go to school. And I remember going out in the rain wearing like a poncho or something and kneeling down in front of the doghouse. And there being these 10 puppies in this, torrential rain. And my dad came home from work. After a long day, he got up at 4 a.m. to go to work, and still in his work uniform, crawling out there in the mud and getting each one of those puppies, drying it off in a towel and taking it under the house. And he built this little warm box with a hanging light under the house. And when I think of gentleness, I think of my dad and how he handled those puppies. And I've always, that was such a cool thing he did. I wanted to spend the night under the house because those puppies were in such a secure, warm place. And when I think about trying to be gentle, or when I struggle with not being gentle, I picture my dad crawling around in the mud, taking care of puppies he didn't order, and just not being mean or cruel or frustrated or aggravated. And it was a horrible situation, but he never said a word. He just did what needed to be done for the puppy. So I think about, that's my image of gentleness, my very gruff looking father with his crew cut haircut and his square jaw. You're taking care of those puppies. I think we are not meek or we're not gentle when we feel threatened. And threatened is a kissing cousin to insecure. And so learning to be comfortable with who you are and learning to be comfortable with who you're not probably leans toward gentleness, because if my ego's not on the line, if my pride's not on the line, then I've got nothing to react to. I'm not personally insulted when something happens. I'm not personally insulted when you don't give me the accolades I want. If you can be absent of ego as much as possible, I think that's a real good step to gentleness. And then, how would you want someone to speak to your mother in any given situation would be a good thing. I tried to talk about humility to some martial arts guys. And I came up with the idea that, humility is the absolute absence of self-consciousness. And my illustration for that is a mountain lion. A mountain lion probably doesn't know he's a mountain lion. He knows he's not a deer. He doesn't care he's not a bear. He just exists and he's comfortable with who he is and what he can do. And I think that's a key to gentleness, is being comfortable with who you are and comfortable with who you're not and not really worrying about it. And then you don't have to posture or preen or flex or anything to make people notice you. I guess that would be maybe not a simple advice, but that would be my advice.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, I feel dumb asking my next question here, because here comes Will's thought process with a personal question, Lonnie. And I've heard a lot of people say, I've been on that in that airport, the Honduras there, and was trying to get very close to Jesus in those moments. And there's times where I've been in some youth ministry experiences where a kid in the back will go, man, if we just had Lonnie here, we could handle this. And I can tell some stories later about those, but this is where my question comes from. Excluding God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, if a zombie apocalypse was to hit the world, what Bible person are you taking as your partner to defeat the zombie apocalypse?
I can't have who?
You can't have God, Jesus, or the Holy Spirit. So which person are you taking? Let's exclude angels, we'll even throw Satan out of there. What person is your partner for the apocalypse?
Well, I'm going to take David, hands down. Saul has slain his thousands. David has slain his 10,000s. David was SEC, Saul was Big Ten. And I mean, that's just all there is to it. And so, if you let me have the Holy Spirit, I'll take, Paul or somebody who's got, those gifts. But if you're just talking about just raw bone, got to go to work with, I'm going to take David.
Yeah, we started that conversation in our text thread asking about that before the podcast, and mine was Benaiah. I mean, a lion in a pit in a snowy day is hard to beat, but of course, David was Benaiah's boss. So
David was Benaiah's boss. So it's one of those things. This is the guy that these guys followed.
Yeah.
And, if you think about the early part of David's renegade years, everybody who was in debt or discontent went to David.
Went to him.
And about 400 to 600 men. And out of that group of men, you get the mighty man list, the 3 or the 30 or the 33, depending on how you read that list. And so not only was David a professional butt kicker, but he also was a transformer of men because of his influence. He's got a personal bodyguard that comes from a different country who, when David leaves, they follow him and pledge their allegiance to him. And that's not just a person of power. That's a person of influence. I always thought that was impressive in the life of David.
Yeah, we were trying in the text thread, we were trying to figure out if anyone would take anyone outside of David and his mighty men. It just kind of seemed everybody kind of pointed to that. So kind of curious there.
If you get Moses' ability to part a body of water, or Noah's ability to bring a flood, but that kind of, brings in the Holy Spirit part. So that's a little different.
if you start doing your top 5 and you again take out the people who had special, Holy Spirit gifts, I think you can't use Samson because that's a Holy Spirit thing. The Spirit of the Lord came on him. I think I'd go with Nimrod, who became a mighty hunter before the Lord. I think you'd have to take, is it Caleb?
Caleb was pretty solid.
Or maybe there's a verse where he says, "This is my hill country, and I took it with my sword and my bow."
I think it was Caleb.
Okay, well, that's
Pretty
pretty solid. This is our family property. Well, who'd you buy it from? I took it with my sword and my bow.
And I think it was giant country too, if I'm not mistaken.
It's giant country, yeah.
So, think about David taking down a few giants. Caleb was pretty solid too. There was somebody in the Bible that could split a hair with slingshot.
There were Benjaminites who were left-handed who could sling a stone at a hair's breadth, and they were.
I'd take them in the party.
Stone slingers, yeah. That'd be a pretty good deal.
All right, Benjamin, you're up, brother.
Oh, is it back to me?
Question number 2.
Question number 2. So the next one that we had that I was thinking about was just kind of coming back to the serious again. We've been dealing with this pandemic of sorts for several months now. What are some words, just maybe thought that it might be good to revisit some encouragement there? What are some things as we're kind of getting back into even some shutdown modes in some places? I don't know who all from different places are listening. What are some things that you think are beneficial or helpful to a listening audience about just dealing with the anxiety, dealing with the frustrations? I mean, we've all heard the statistics about, those who've contemplated suicide or suicide during these times because we're apart from each other. What are some of your thoughts on things that we could do to help and encourage people or ourselves?
Roundabout answer. When I was an intern, I did every Thursday night for 18 weeks from noon to midnight at Cedar Lodge, a drug rehabilitation place. And I was in a class with a lady named Doris who facilitated the children's class. These are children whose parents were addicts, and they were incarcerated or residents at Cedar Lodge. And Doris's 3 magic words were, "I didn't cause this. I can't cure this. How do I cope with it?" So, when you get in any situation, reference a little book entitled Grappling for Life or Grappling with Life, Controlling Your Inside Space. One of the principles in that book is control the controllables and do the doables. So, here I am, I'm in shutdown mode, or I'm in lockdown mode, or my church can't meet. Well, what can you control and what can you do? Now, for human survival, we all need attention, belonging, and support. And with the internet age, how easy is it to give people attention, to make people feel like they belong, and offer people support with a phone call, a text message, a tweet, a visit on a Zoom call, or anything like that. So control the controllables, do the doables. It didn't cause it, can't cure it. How do I cope with it? And I cope with, if it's people interaction I need, then you reciprocally find some people that you can do attention, belonging, and support with. And I think that's pretty healthy stuff.
Absolutely.
I listen to the Ben, Travis, and Will podcast and, get inspired every day.
Hey, I know the author of that book that you referenced, by the way. He's a good guy.
Oh, by the way, you snuck that in on me, did you?
That's a Lonnie Jones book that you can pick up where, Lonnie? Where can you pick that up?
Available on Amazon.
There you go. Awesome. Good deal.
Stuff.
Well, I'll jump into my question. This is bringing it back down a little bit to some fun. Elijah Anderson on the Ministry League page on Facebook. And by the way, Lonnie, your podcast has been added to the Ministry League library. Welcome aboard. We're excited about that. But Elijah had the question, would you rather fight a horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
Okay, so Tiger McGee at Shoot Right Academy, who's the author of the Book of Two Guns, It's his philosophy on operating an AR platform and a 1911, which is a 45 pistol. He wrote the Book of Two Guns, and he designed an AR called the Katana. It's only made in Wedowee, Alabama. It's kind of your bare bones. Anybody can pick this gun up and go to work. And he's a professional gunfighter. He's a gun instructor, taught at Thunder Ranch, and runs his own academy. He says, in a fight, there's only two things you can control: what you can do and how fast you can do it. When you start dealing with multiple opponents, like a swarm, and if I'm scared of anything, I'm scared of a swarm of bees more than I am a giant hornet. And so I would take the horse-sized duck. I think I'm good at 500 yards on a 12-inch piece of steel with my 30-06. But I don't know that I want 100 of anything that I've got to deal with or manage. That, you get kind of overwhelmed. I can end a duck fight with one shot from a long distance. From short distance, he got that long neck, and a machete, a tactical tomahawk, lots of things work on that neck. And you only have one thing to worry about: what can you do? How fast can you do it? And with 100 little things running around, it would be a problem. And ducks aren't that intimidating, by the way.
Only Lonnie could turn a crazy question like that into a very scientific answer.
I was just thinking, you can't get this anywhere else. Nowhere else is Lonnie able to break down and like convince me, like, yeah, I want a horse-sized duck in a fight, because I now have the tools to win that fight. Yeah. I mean, great stuff. Great stuff. Lonnie, next question comes from one of our, I would say, favorite people of all of us. Karen Mann had sent me a message, and she said, would love to hear Lonnie's response on this. When I was a child, I always thought blank, but now that I'm older, I realized blank. So when I was a child, I always thought blank, but when I got older, I realized blank.
The immediate thing that comes to my mind is a thing I saw on Facebook. When I was a child, I thought quicksand was going to be a bigger problem than it is. As I'm an adult, I realize it's probably not something I should worry about from all those jungle movies I watched. When I was a child, I always thought that spirituality was what you did. But as an adult, I realize it's what you are. The things that we do don't connect us to Jesus. Our connection to Jesus dictates the things that we do. And it probably prompted a series of lessons called being and not just doing. But that would be, I guess, my serious answer to that.
It's a great one. It's a great one. Lonnie, we're getting ready to wrap up this episode. We sure do appreciate. We know that you've got a lot of things going on, and we've been working on trying to get this together. I think we were really originally shooting for maybe once a quarter. Football happened, and that kind of went out the window.
Hey, but congratulations on the championship, by the way.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Football. This is the longest football season of my life, and we only played 8 games. So, but it was well worth it. Those guys did a great job, but I do appreciate that. Appreciate you guys being with us. Ben, Will, got anything else you'd like to throw out there?
No, just thankful to have another chance to be with you guys.
Yeah, I love you guys and look forward to the next part of the episode.
December 7th, 1941 is a day that our grandparents and great-grandparents might recall vividly. Thousands of brave individuals answered the call to enlist and serve their country. Those back home waited and also served by providing essential support.
Since then, veterans have served in the Korean War, the Vietnam War, Desert Storm, Operation Enduring Freedom, and the current ongoing global military operations. It's no surprise that our veterans have paid a huge price for the freedoms that we cherish. Serenity Counseling is honored to serve those who have served through their Renewed Warriors program.
If you are a veteran who struggles with post-traumatic stress, or maybe you love a veteran who is struggling with post-traumatic stress, it can often be hard to talk about. Drug therapy can often feel like a Band-Aid,
This program, the Renewed Warriors program, is free. Renewed Spirits is currently recruiting veterans for their equine assisted support group, working with horses outside in the open air. Give them a call or check out their website for more information and to be a part of this group. They'll let you know the details. All you have to do is report for duty. The horses are very good at helping, but you have to be in their presence for it to work.
Give the counselors at Serenity Counseling a call, 256-263-6367, or at their website, serenitycounselingshoals.org.
Serenity Counseling is located at 1954 Jackson Road in Florence, Alabama.
Serenity Counseling, where hope is given and healing begins.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.